I don't think a fiance has the same privilege as a wife. I don't think he should be saying 1 out of every 4 nights he spends time with Robin.
It's 11 days that they're gone together.
I don't know what's acceptable, but I think 11 days is ridiculous, to be honest with you. I think he has a big family, and I think 11 days is too much. So that's where I'm at, and I'm angry. So I'm having a hard time reconciling this thing that's not logical, that I'm totally fine with Robin. She's great. And yet I find myself being so illogically angry.
No, I'm sorry. It is logical to be angry. Yes, it is.
I need you to just be really patient with this, because I understand that it's illogical. I know it's irrational, and don't get frustrated, but it's like,
but you're not saying irrational.
I'm worried that somehow this will mean that you somehow start favoring Robin, or that the balance of...
Then I'm going to ride off with her into the sunset.
When I'm not rational, I worry that it changes the dynamic.
I'm not going to leave. We're not riding off in the sunset, but the 5 of us.
So when Robin came into the family, I was shocked at how many times she disagreed with you. I always just gave in. You wanted to do something, I just gave in. I was like, whatever you needed, I just did. And I didn't argue, didn't even formulate an opinion all the way. And it completely shocked me that you loved her even though she was just arguing with you.
It doesn't matter. In this case, we've got an issue where we have to have a child custody agreement in place, 50-50 agreement. Then we just work out the details all the time. So.
No, I don't trust her. How am I supposed to trust? You know, like what's the next move she's going to make against me? Usually divorces just aren't that nice. She's going back to a state that will come after me.
Hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. We've been tracking this new litigation in Utah between Kody Brown and Brown Woolley as it pertains to child support. And yesterday, Christine did a very aggressive move and filed a response, and that initiated a status conference, which will be held in December, on December 18th. It'll be virtual. And in that conference, a commissioner, not a judge, will set the case on track for whether it will be a straightforward case, whether it will have complex discovery, or whether it will be more of a high dispute case that will involve the needs of experts and advocates for children and evaluations of child custody evaluators. Now, what I want to talk about right now are a couple things. There will be some stipulations in the court pertaining to these cases that will absolutely prevent this from being televised by sister wives. And then I also want to talk with you about something that's a little bit troubling about the judge that is assigned to this case, because this judge is someone that Kody has familiarity with. And this judge offered quite a bit of leniency to someone that is close to Kody. And this someone is Kyle Henderson. And that judge gave him basically a slap on the wrist. And she has a history of apparently maybe being a little bit too lenient on men that don't deserve leniency. So Kody Brown will be facing off with a female commissioner named Marla Snow. And then the presiding judge in this case, her name is Christine Johnson. And she has been in the 4th District since I think 2008 or 2009. She has a controversial history because of her stance on a lot of different things when it comes to men. But most importantly, in 2018, she signed off on a plea agreement with Mitchell Kyle Henderson. And this was that she would dismiss both felony counts against him if he obeyed all laws for 12 months and paid a $400 fee. He had been charged with 6 felonies for assault, DV, and witness tampering. This was a shocking resolution. Kyle Henderson had been arrested for the assault of his wife, Nicole, and that had left her battered. She left him in 2016. And the battery of her actually led to a change in the laws for polygamy in the state of Utah. Her dad, Senator Kevin Van Tassel, went to the floor and shared photographs of what had happened to Nicole. And that's when it became a felony. And they had increased the penalties for polygamy. And it was overturned a couple years later. And now today it remains a felony, but it's only a misdemeanor if it's only just polygamy you're caught doing. But she signed off on a case that should not have ever been what it was. Kyle Henderson had been influencing his children to testify on his behalf, intimidating them to testify on his behalf, and to lie about what happened to their mother. And Nicole basically walked away feeling like justice wasn't served. There are a lot of cases, and they're all complex, and polygamy is very controversial in Utah, and there is a lot of resistance by the politicians and the judges in court to hold polygamous men accountable, because then they would have to hold all of them accountable. And there's a deep connection between the courts and the theological monarchy or the theocracy that is Utah, which has a deep rooted history of the Latter-day Saints Church. And there is a lot of resistance from politicians and from even people in the court to manage and handle the polygamy issue because of the history of polygamy in the LDS faith and the fact that the LDS faith still has in its rules that polygamy will be practiced in heaven. And that is a huge burden that some of these people refuse to step over. And so they don't like to prosecute polygamists. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's just Utah has been soft. So Christine presided over the criminal case. Now, that doesn't mean that it'll be the same in this situation. This is a much different place between Kody and Christine, but I just wanted to share with you, like, this judge was part of a very controversial plea agreement. Interestingly, Kody was going to be an expert witness for this case before it went to trial, which is wild. And he was going to give testimony as an expert on the behalf of Kyle Henderson in his defense. And it says that he was going to testify the religious and social structure and beliefs of the Apostolic United Brethren compared with the Latter-day Saints Church. How it is not difficult for husbands, wives, and children in plural marriage families to leave the AUB, and the fact that DV does not occur more frequently than in non-polygamous families in general, even in traditional mainstream LDS families. And the truth regarding the so-called patriarchal nature of the AUB, the lines of authority taught within the AUB, and that women are not subservient, that there are not mandates of loyalty and obedience to be a member of the AUB or requirement that adherents or members cover for DV and control women within the AUB. He will also rebut testimony that explains the religious, social, and personal pressure defendant used to coerce and control the alleged victim during the alleged cycle of DV. He will also be used to rebut expert against Kristen Decker, Miss Decker, and regarding any claim by the state bias of prejudice and or any motive to misrepresent and impeach the defendant's witness. Kody was going to go to court and try to help Kyle get off on domestic violence, and he was going to deny that any witness intimidation occurred, and he was going to deny that the AUB was a patriarchy, which is weird because he was in an interview on a podcast in 2023 stating that it was a patriarchy and stating that there was lines of obedience and control in the AUB. Kody was going to perjure himself in order to help his best friend get off on charges. And he was going to be a witness in a trial that was presided over the current judge assigned to the case with Kody and Christine. So that's a little bit backstory on the judge. Now, when it comes to the lawyer, this is even worse. Kody Brown is now represented by a woman named Rosamond Blakelock. I have actually a follower that said that she's been repped by Rosamond for years and claims that she's a great attorney. But I'm concerned by why he selected this attorney, and it has to do with the fact that, again, Kyle Mitchell Henderson is repped by Rosamond Blakelock in his divorce against Nicole Henderson. It is not a coincidence that Kody is using the same attorney. There's no coincidences when it comes to Kody and Kyle. And the fact that Kyle and Kody are still connected and Kody is using an attorney that's also representing Kyle tells me that Kody is still involved in the AUB. Despite public claims that he has no involvement with this church and he does not have any loyalty to the church or the fact that the church and their leaders don't have any authority over him, Kyle is a bishop in the AUB. I just want to put that out there. Kody is best friends with a leader in the church, and he now is being repped by an attorney that reps Kyle. Kyle Henderson's divorce is very different than what Kody and Christine are facing, and the similarities between the two cases aren't going to be very significant. Kyle and Nicole were married, and Nicole was the first wife and the legal wife, and she was the legal wife for more than, I don't know, 15 or 20 years before he ever had added a second wife. And their case is complicated by the fact that she was a battered woman by Kyle. And once she left Kyle, she spiraled into alcohol use disorder, which resulted in some arrests for driving under the influence. She went and sought treatment. She has been sober for more than 5 years. She has been diligently working to repair her life and do therapy, but her history was used against her in this case. And because she left Kyle and left some of the kids with him, he retained custody of the kids. He also stalled their divorce for more than 7 years before it went to trial. He has been hanging on to properties and he attempted to hide properties from her. He was stalling the divorce so that he didn't have to give up any of the money that he had. In the divorce decree that was finally finalized in February, Kyle was granted primary custody of the kids, and Nicole, the battered wife and traumatized victim of the cult, is paying Kyle child support every single month. Now, he's had multiple attorneys on this case. His current attorney, Rosamond, did not handle most of this case. The majority of the case was under the direction of the former Utah Attorney General, Mark Shurtleff. Mark helped to have their case not include any discussions of polygamy, the domestic violence cases, his history of domestic violence. The judge heard none of that. So they couldn't even factor into why Nicole was struggling and then factor into why she had to go through substance abuse treatment and treatment to manage the trauma of coming out of this cult. That case continues to be ongoing. There's new filings in that as of just a week ago. And Nicole is working to try to reverse the order and put in a new order of the divorce and establish new guidelines for child custody. There is still very deep concerns by Nicole that Kyle is bringing their children to AUB dances, and their youngest daughter is 12 or 13. And that's when girls can start attending dances and be groomed to become plural wives. And she's out of this cult and she doesn't want her children involved in polygamy. And to this day, most of her kids are involved in polygamy, sadly. Now, in the case of Kody, it's a little bit different. We know that things are very different in the fact that Kody doesn't have the same level of control and support of his family. He doesn't have as many kids that would ever be willing to testify on his behalf. He doesn't have adult children that would be willing to lie for him under oath or be influenced or intimidated to lie for him under oath. Kody has 3 ex-wives and all the kids with Christine, Janelle, and Mary that basically want nothing to do with him. If the odds were not in Nicole's favor, the odds are very much stacked in Christine's favor in that case. The biggest issue here for me is that there could be concerns about whether or not polygamy will be even allowed to be a part of the case, whether or not his history of fraud or abuse will be able to be introduced. And then there's a lack of actual records to show that Kody is abusive. In the case of Nicole and Kyle, she had an order of protection against him that wasn't allowed to be a part of the divorce. He had criminal charges that weren't allowed to be a part of the divorce. And the polygamy component was not allowed to be a part of the divorce. The only difference is they have the same attorney, different judge on Kyle and Nicole's case than the case with Christine and Kody. So I have hope for Christine that she is going to be prepared, but my concern remains that I have in the past 5 years I've become close to anti-polygamist advocates that help women leave polygamy. I've donated to organizations with like holding out help and have gotten to know the people that work there. I have a relationship with Kristen Decker, have been close with her for years, and have gotten to know a lot of advocates. And I know very well that it's very difficult for women that leave polygamy to prevail in the court system because polygamy leaves women completely battered, traumatized, and thrown to the wolves. And then the men rally together and use their resources to further abuse the women through court. If Kody is still close to Kyle, Kody still has ties to the AUB. Kyle is not super high up in leader, he's a bishop, but it tells me that Kody is still unwilling to strip himself of his ties to fundamentalism. Even though on the show he keeps saying that he's lost his religion, he's lying, straight up lying. There's an agreement between the AUB and Kody that he not claim membership in the church, and they're supposed to be distanced from the church. Now, the current prophet doesn't like Kody, but that doesn't mean anything. Just because a prophet doesn't like you doesn't mean you can't go back to the church. All Kody would have to do is repent to the leaders and start tithing, and he would easily be able to come back. Kody has a lot of fundamentalist men that will come to his defense and try to steamroll and intimidate Christine into settling. I have concerns that the judge in this case has been lenient on abusers and lenient on domestic violence abusers in this world of polygamy. But I also want to state that Christine Brown is a very different plaintiff or petitioner. Christine has celebrity, she has influence, she has a sustainable and decent income. She has a wonderful support system. And as much as Kody has a cult support system around him, Christine does too. Even though Christine has left, she has the name BARRED, and she has a lot of family members still in the cult that are more sympathetic to her than they are to Kody. I don't think that Kody will get the same kind of kid gloves that Kyle Henderson has had. And I don't think he will have the same results as Kyle because Christine had better resources than Nicole. I want to just highlight Nicole's plight and let you all know that just because Christine is leaving and it looks like she's going to get what she deserves from Kody, I want to be very clear that a lot of women that leave don't have this kind of success and they don't have the resources or even the support networks to be able to do what Christine is doing. A lot of women that leave polygamy are thrown to the wolves and the bus is driven over them in the legal system, in the justice system, and the divorce court. So Nicole represents, and the case Nicole represents thousands of women in the world of Utah and in the world of polygamy that are not, their abuse is invalidated and their trauma is invalidated. And because they've been traumatized so greatly and abused so significantly, they come out of the cult and they have such huge issues to overcome. It impacts their ability to be good parents. They have to claw back and prove themselves after being abused. And then so frequently, the abusers are able to look like the stellar husband and good guy in court. It's sad. So I have hope for Christine. I hope that this will go better for her. Christine doesn't have a history of alcohol abuse, right? She doesn't have any arrests at all. Christine has a very clean criminal history. She doesn't have a lot of civil litigation in her background. Christine has been, for all intents and purposes, a law-abiding citizen. And the welfare issue shouldn't be a problem because in the state of Utah, they really did open doors so that women that even though if they knew the paternity of their husbands for their kids were able to get welfare for their kids because the Utah issue with welfare and polygamy and kids that have wealth and giving WIC and food stamps and benefits to families and to mothers. They don't want to harm the children just because their mothers are involved in polygamy. It's not their fault. So I'm at least hopeful in that respect. And I spoke to Kristen Decker today about that, and she just said that the welfare issue shouldn't be an issue. The delay in establishing paternity shouldn't be an issue. That Utah has been very lenient in those cases. She also mentioned the fact that Kody didn't actually seek child custody of Truly and didn't file for paternity once Christine left, that could actually bite him in the butt because he didn't actually take the steps legally to be her parent once Christine and Truly left the family. Kody's lack of responsibility as a father and his inability to take responsibility after more than 3 years could also be used against him. I'm hopeful for Christine. I wanted to share these details because I want people to have a very clear understanding that even though it looks like Kody is going to be taken to the cleaners, there is always a fear that in the patriarchy that is the state of Utah in the good old boys club, that Kody could end up getting a sweetheart deal and not have any level of accountability. And that happens to so many women. Christine has an opportunity to use her platform in a way that could really elevate the voices of women in polygamy that leave. And I hope that she'll be able to use it effectively and be an advocate for others that leave. She used to advocate for polygamy, and my hope is that she'll one day become an advocate for those that leave. As far as the case being able to be recorded, that will be no. They cannot use this at all for sister wives. The case will not be able to be recorded because under law in the state of Utah, proceedings in domestic cases cannot be recorded. Kody will not be able to record the hearing with his computer or with his phone unless a court and a judge allows cameras in. I can't, and I don't think they will. I don't think a court will allow filming of this because then it would become a circus and it doesn't protect the rights of Truly. She's a minor, and minor children's cases are not public consumption. We can read documents, we can talk about other cases, we can read court orders, but to put cameras in a case that involves Truly just feels like exploitative. And I feel like Kody would 100% countersue for the purpose of the show. Will this be discussed on the show? Maybe, but you have to remember that they have orders now where Kody cannot disparage her, she cannot disparage him, and they have to be nice to each other publicly and privately. It's going to hopefully change his behavior on the show, maybe. And then the other factor is how does this impact the show? This is two people that are involved in the same production of a show that's they're both profiting off of and have children that are being exploited through the show. Is Christine also going to be standing up for her daughter and making sure that her daughter gets adequate payment for her involvement on Sister Wives? Is there going to be any discussion about that by the judge and whether or not that's in the best interest of the child? Those are some questions I have, but viewers will not get to see this play out on the show, unless, of course, they speak about it. But both of them will have to be extremely careful about how they discuss this publicly, because both of them can be held in contempt if either one of them speak negatively or disparagingly of the other. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Bye, everyone.